Hey guys, Otto here, back with another video. So what I'm going to do in this video, guys, is talk to you about 5 reasons why you are failing as an agency owner, okay? And I'm not just going to delve deep into these problems, I'm actually going to give you the physical, tangible solutions that you need to implement in order to resolve them, okay? Now, before we jump into that, I want to read this quote here, okay? And this is a quote from Benjamin Franklin, and it goes like this. Most people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. Most people die at 25 and aren't buried until they are 75, okay? Now think about that quote for a moment. It's got relevance for this whole video now, okay? And what that quote means to me is that by the time people get to the age of 25, typically it's the stage of their life where they start to feel like time passes rapidly, okay? So they were sat in school, a few years back, looking at the clock, waiting for their lessons and their classes to finish, counting down the minutes, seconds and hours, and now they're at a point in their life where they can't even get a grip on the time that's passing, okay? It's going by rapidly, they're seeing changes rapidly, and there's nothing they can do to stop it, okay? And what I'm going to talk to you in this video about is why this quote is relevant to your journey as an agency owner, okay? So typically what we see with young people who get to this age is very similar to the issues you will be facing when running a business, all right? Now, the first issue is that when you are young, you have the roadmap set out for you, okay? Milestones are very clearly set. You have a North Star and you have a guiding hand that takes you down a route of life that is easily seeable, easily visible, and expectations-wise, you know what to expect. But the problem is, as you get later on into your life, and indeed when you start a business, those milestones are no longer there for you as a safety net, okay? So when you launch your agency, you launch a business, you don't know whether you should be working on client acquisition or systems, your SOPs or hiring or designing or branding, whatever it might be. The milestones and the blueprint for you is not set out, okay? There's 1,000,001 different ways that you can see success. But the difference here is that you've gone from a background of having everything laid out clearly for you to then in this open void that you are facing of infinite inputs, infinite outputs, and it leads to the point where you just simply don't know what to work on. Okay, so it's a similar situation we see at the age of 25 that we do when you start a business. Okay, now the way that you can overcome this is as such, all right? So you have to, in your business, design milestones that are appropriate to who you are as a person and the goals that you are wanting to achieve, okay? So the first thing that you must do is set regular goals. Now, if you are struggling to set goals, look up the SMART framework, find a framework for goal setting that actually suits you as an individual, and then establish a route of getting there with your personal life, but also your business, okay? So within your business, what you're going to need to do is actually set objectives monthly, quarterly, and on an annual basis. These goals, like I say, should be revolving around that SMART acronym. They should be specific, measurable, and aligned with your long-term vision, okay? So set a time frame to them. A goal is not just, I want to make 30K a month, and then you work towards it. It has to be more specific to that. It has to be time-bound, and you have to have skin in the game, all right? Now, from there, what you will be able to do is actually create new levels for yourself. So what you need to do is imagine your life and your business as a game, and that game has multiple levels, okay? Each level should represent a significant achievement or growth phase, and this should give you, in each occasion, a sense of progression and accomplishment, okay? So break down all of those goals and gamify your experience, because this is what you've gone through at school, okay? This is where you get the golden star. This is where you get the medal, the reward, whatever it might be, from actually achieving those goals that are set out for you. Don't leave this up to chance. You might think, I'm an autonomous adult. I don't need to set these goals. I don't need to treat myself like a child. Your brain is very primitive in how it functions and how it responds to, all of the stimuli that you are trying to filter through right now. Okay, so set your goals and then create new levels. The third point here is to celebrate your wins. So one thing I did in the early days of my agency, and I largely don't do it now, I should, is that every time I closed a new client, I would buy myself a gift, okay? So I really like aftershaves and eau de toilettes, fragrances. So I would make sure that out of the revenue that I was charging my clients, one of the most immediate things I would do was actually go out there and buy myself, a new Chanel aftershave or a new Hermes aftershave, whatever it might be, because that was something to me that represented success and celebration celebrated my wins. I recommend doing that with fragrances because fragrances are a lot more longer lasting than if you treat yourself to a cheap meal or whatever it might be, or buy yourself something material and tangible that's going to lose its kind of novelty value. Once you spray a fragrance on, every time you spray that fragrance on, you're going to associate that. You're going to be basically conditioned. That smell is going to be conditioned to you basically towards success, okay? Every time you've made money, you're going to smell that smell, okay? And that's why I did it. Now, the fourth point here, which is imperative when you actually set goals, is to track your progress, okay? So it's the same if you're losing weight and you're counting your calories, measuring your macros. What you need to do is actually have a system that works for you, implement it, that makes you see your advancement towards your goal, okay? So you can use ClickUp or Notion to actually write down your goals, and you can set the progress bar on that. Do that, don't leave it up to chance, and I promise you, you'll actually feel more motivated towards, ticking these wins and putting up scores on the scoreboard, all right? Now, the second point here is that you have to implement these milestones into your business, all right? You have to design what your business looks like for you, okay? Nobody's going to do that for you. And the way that we've talked about that already is basically by creating those goals, chunking them, and then building out a visual picture so that you can see your progress and advancement towards those goals, all right? So break down these larger milestones, put them into smaller, more actionable steps that you can actually gamify. And by doing so, you're actually going to give yourself a tangible physical blueprint and a roadmap that you can follow. It's going to give you security, all right? Just like the roadmaps and curriculum you had at school. Now, what I want to talk about now is the education gap. So we have an outdated education system, and as an entrepreneur, the education system that you've largely been conditioned to and that you've grown up within isn't going to serve you in the world of business, all right? So you largely have to unlearn the learning mechanisms and processes and input cognitive workflows that you have been conditioned to leverage through our traditional education system. You need to unlearn those, okay? And what you need to do is basically focus on learning and the acquisition of new skills, okay? So as an entrepreneur, it's up to you to be able to identify veins of gold, learn and have a minimum level of conviction that you need to actually bring those goals to fruition, and then generate something commercial from them, by selling it, okay? So this problem is basically compounded by the rapid pace of technology that we are facing today, all right? And classroom knowledge that you once had to learn and memorize for exams is useless, all right? So if you're trying to leverage those old principles of learning, you need to switch. You need to focus on the acquisition of new skills, and you need to make that more fun, okay? So how do you actually learn, all right? So a new approach to education is required for entrepreneurship. So the first one is to always embrace continuous learning. So as an entrepreneur, as a leader, it's pretty much my number one responsibility and priority to learn, okay? And the fact that I'm in the arena and I have this business gives me a feedback loop. It gives me a kind of closed-end cycle here where learning things, implementing them and sharing them keeps the whole thing relevant. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? If I didn't have an audience, or if I didn't have clients or, team members, then learning things wouldn't really serve a purpose, okay? But now, obviously, I have all those systems in place. I'm leveraging all those elements of, running a business. Every time I learn, it has context, okay? So I can learn it, I can memorize it, I can action it and implement it by teaching it, whether that's through, these videos to you guys or directly through to our B2B clients. And that in turn is going to help grow my business, okay? I've talked about gamifying skill acquisition, okay? So we see this in school groups. We've got a school group. If you want to join that, I'll drop a link below. But you need to approach new learning and new skills as an engaging game, okay? So set challenges for yourself, track your progress, and reward your achievements, all right? And rewarding your achievements might be, I post a video on it and I get 2 people like it, whatever it might be, however simple or primitive your brain wants to, level your brain wants to operate on, just leverage that, okay? Don't overthink it. Now, focus on your practical skills. When you're at school, we don't typically focus on developing practical skills, and not least skills that are going to help you actually develop and scale a business, all right? So new sales skills, digital skills, AI, whatever it might be, leadership. Focus on these practical skills and implement them in your business to reinforce your learning. And also what you're going to have to do is leverage multiple resources, okay? So I practically learned how to build my business off of YouTube. If I was at school and I said I'm practicing for my exam on YouTube only, your teachers would scoff at you, okay? They would say, no, you have to follow our curriculum. when you have a business, when you are operating in this arena, you've got to leverage the resources that work best for you. Okay, so whether that's coaching programs, online courses, mentorship, one-on-one coaching, YouTube, free resources, whatever it might be, don't be closed off to anything that's going to help you learn and get better. So practical learning strategies for business growth. All right, so to effectively bridge this gap between traditional education and real-world business needs, you need to consider implementing all of these strategies I've talked about. All right, so invest your time into specialized courses, mentorship, one-on-one coaching, whatever it might be, whatever you need to do to get up and running, build momentum, and actually see success quicker. Now, the third point here is something that's quite interesting. All right, so as an adult, typically after the age of 25, and it's the same thing we see when you become an entrepreneur and start a business, is that your support network will dissolve, okay? You'll experience a loss of your support network. Now, when you might have been a type A personality and a high achiever student, and everything was set up in your environment in the traditional education system to support you achieving those goals, okay? Your parents could kind of understand the context that you were operating in. Your teachers could see, your progress firsthand, and everybody that was there to kind of support you to tick those boxes and achieve what you were, meant to achieve and graduate on, okay? But when it comes to business, what you will see is that support network totally dissolve, okay? So starting and scaling a business is incredibly difficult. That's why the majority of people in the world don't do it and haven't been successful doing it, all right? I don't know what the statistic is nowadays, like 97% of startups fail after the last over a 5-year period or a 2-year period. It's something shocking like that, all right? So what you have to do as a business owner, and indeed if you're over the age of 25, is specifically and proactively build and nurture your own support networks, okay? So you can do this by setting up recurring meetings. These can be with your staff, but typically these would be with, somebody who's achieved something that you are looking to achieve. This could be a mentor, a peer, friend, whatever it might be. I recommend not doing this with family because family just simply won't understand your motivations and the reasons for you, trying so hard to build your business as much as you will, and it will lead naturally to disappointment, okay? You should prioritize personal relationships. Now, we live in a digital world, all right? We live in school communities, Discord servers, and in the YouTube comments. But one thing you need to really proactively focus on as a business owner, and if you're feeling isolated, is prioritizing real relationships with physical, tangible human beings, okay? So make time for family, make time for your partner, whatever it might be, meet friends, try to have some sort of life outside of work, all right? The third point here is to join professional communities. Now, again, you can do this if you're watching this, you're probably in our community. When you join our free course, you get access to our free Discord community as well. And we've got the paid school community. So we've got, personally in our business, lots of different opportunities for you to actually join a professional community. Maybe you're a client acquisition expert, you run an agency, whatever it might be, and we're a good fit for you. But if it's something like fitness or health, whatever it might be, there's, a million and one other communities out there that's available. And a fourth point here is something that you'll probably find you'll come across, later on down your business journey, depending on where you are at, sort of with your growth, but create collaborative opportunities. So when you partner with other companies, you're both going to be partnered for the mutual success of, both of your companies, okay? So when you become proficient at whatever you are delivering as a service, you can then partner with other service providers, and you just will become a more unifying force. One thing you can do is implement a mastermind. So I saw this on Twitter the other day. Some guys who are relatively experienced in the agency space and the lead gen space have created a kind of small mastermind group, I think of 8, money Twitter guys. It's not open to the public, but whatever you need to do, create a mastermind group, call it whatever you want. Just create an environment where you can have that kind of support system. Now, this is an interesting one, and the kind of application to business is interesting too. So when you get to the age of 25, you will start to realize that adults and specifically your parents aren't always correct, okay? So when you are a child, you look to adults and you look to your parents as the single source of truth. They know everything, okay? They have the answer for everything. They've been there, they've done that, and by proxy of them just being an adult, by being older, you have confidence in their ability to solve problems and give you the answers. But what you realize as you get older, and as you surpass 25 years of age, and indeed when you have a business, is that actually the parenting relationship will switch, okay? So your parents will no longer be in a position where they are parenting you as the child. you will actually start to realize that it's your job, and it will be increasingly so your job to look after them, okay? So depending on how old your parents are, it could be as, raw and brutal as looking after them when they get older and more senile. But it's the same with the company, okay? The switch will happen where you are no longer going to be rewarded for learning and achieving and looking after, yourself or looking to others for support. You'll actually, position-wise and responsibilities-wise, all of that's going to change, and the responsibility is going to be on you, okay? So you have to prepare for this life transition, and there's a few strategies here that you can kind of put in place to do that, all right? So anticipating it and planning for the change is important. So do not start a business, don't set out on this journey with the expectation that anybody else other than yourself is going to be fully responsible and is going to be responsible for answering all of these unanswered questions and solving all of the problems and bottlenecks that you face in your business, okay? So you are solely responsible for that, and just supporting researching what support systems in place, putting a plan into action proactively is going to help you with your approach, as opposed to, believing that none of this is going to happen and you can sit back and be, act retroactively, all right? Delegation and automation. So when you have a business, and it's the same when you get to being an older adult, you have to identify the tasks in your personal life, but also in your business life, that can be off-shifted to somebody else and automated, okay? So if you're finding in your business that you are constantly putting out fires and you're solving other people's problems, your staff members' problems for you, now is probably the time to get a VA, get a virtual assistant, get somebody in who can free up your time so that you can spend that time on critical thinking and, big picture visions. And again, build a support system, okay? So make sure that you are dedicating time to cultivate a network of friends, family members, and indeed professional contacts, okay? So you are going to still need emotional support. You're going to need practical, tangible assistance. So consider looking at these support groups, okay? And do that as early as you can. This is all about building a resilient business structure, okay? So you need to be proactive in how you prepare your business and how you prepare that for not only your personal transitions that you're going through life, but also the transitions that you'll be going through in your business's growth and the natural genesis of your business, okay? So make sure early days you are implementing systems, that you're delegating, you're creating SOPs that are covering every aspect of service delivery, major business functions, and then implementing project management tools so that you have team collaboration, and you can make sure that your goals that you've set prior are all aligned and on set and on target. All right. You can consider this at a granular level by training employees across different roles. It's going to increase flexibility in your company. But what you really want at the end of the day is something robust. Okay, you want a robust, adaptable structure that has a strong foundation that can see you through the long term with your business. All right. Now, problem number 5 is the routine trap. So when you are younger, when you're at school, or if you are coming from a full-time employed job, you are going to have a routine that has been forced upon you, okay? And what this routine is probably doing is causing you some issues. The reason you're watching this is that you want to be a better entrepreneur. And, the nature of you trying to be an entrepreneur means that you are not happy or satisfied with a full-time employed role, okay? But so what you're facing probably in an employed full-time role is a severe lack of freedom. Your creativity is being restricted. You've been put in a box and you need to get out of that, okay? I understand it because I've been there, albeit a long time ago now, about 6 years ago now. But what the routine is probably doing for you is it's forcing you to get out of bed. It's forcing you to take care of your appearance and wash and bathe and take care of your clothes. It's probably forcing you to keep relatively on top of your finances. You can project the money that you're coming into your personal income. And these things are all kind of indirect benefits of having that the structure that a employed role gives you. Now, as you settle into your business, what you will find at the first is that you don't have any of these routines in place. And I can't remember what the cognitive principle is, but you will basically, it might be the Pareto principle, I'm not sure. The work that you've got at hand will expand to fill the time that you have, present, okay? So if you have a report to write and you've got 3 years to write it, you will take 3 years to write that report. Okay, and the same principle applies to your routine. What you will find is kind of everything degenerating to the lowest common denominator. So if you're not following your goals and you've not set a proper routine that helps you identify and focus on those revenue generating actions and activities in your business, you will just fall back onto answering emails and watching videos and learning and not really doing anything, okay? So you have to create a routine that works for you, but equally you have to avoid routines that make you feel, like you have no motivation, they are causing you to lose momentum or miss opportunities, you're feeling, less competitive, whatever it might be. You need to create a routine that gives you that kind of pizzazz, keeps you fresh, keeps you motivated and on track to achieve your goals, all right? So the way that you can do this is schedule quarterly breaks, okay? So retreats in this case could be, depending on how big a business is, do that with your team, but it's really important to book regular trips, okay? So I know that every time when I travel and visit a country abroad and step outside of my business and go dark, I then come back with a huge amount of inspiration, new ideas, new motivations, new ways to improve our product offerings and our services. And in reality, it's kind of it looks like a counterintuitive approach, but by stepping back and going away and having some time off, I've actually been able to come back into my business and create some real strategic plays that's going to help, scale my business much more rapidly than if I hadn't have had that break, so to speak. All right. Keep analyzing your performance, okay? So not only analyzing your business performance, but look at your health. If you've got a Whoop or a fitness tracker, look at how you are performing physically. And then what you're going to be able to do is basically build some correlations between your day-to-day activities and routine and how you're actually functioning as a human and as a business, all right? If you don't know what to focus on top line revenue, okay? It's your first and biggest responsibility as a business owner. Brainstorm and don't be afraid to reshuffle, okay? So maybe it's rebranding, it's coming up with new product ideas. You need to section out time and apportion time in your week as an entrepreneur to have freedom, have, I call it milling time, milling space, where you're able to wake up and potter about and think about things actively, okay? Another technique you can use is by going on a specific walk in the day. If you've got a dog, take your dog out and say to yourself before that walk, speak to your subconscious and say, okay, subconscious, this is the problem I am struggling with. I have a high churn rate and all of my clients, they're really happy when they join, but after a month they leave us, okay? I give you permission and I'm asking you to solve that problem for me, okay? Close the book, go on your walk, don't actively think about solving the problem and leave it to your subconscious, okay? And I promise you, if you leverage this technique and you practice it, you will be able to solve your problems. Problems and solutions will come to you quicker than they would have if you were sat in a room, with a pen and paper trying to hash out solutions to all of your problems. And then it's really important to continually adapt, okay? What you need to do as a business owner is implement changes, all right? So if you have the ideas, action them quickly, all right? Some people say if they have the same idea 2 or 3 times, they know that that's their kind of internal trigger, their mechanism, their messaging system that they've got to actually put that into action, all right? But speed of implementation, once you have an idea of what to change, put those changes into effect quickly. All right? So that's it, guys. Hopefully that has helped you with this this explanation and this walkthrough. Leverage the strategies I've talked about in this video. The journey of business, running an agency, is going to be very up and down. It's not going to be linear. And let me know how these strategies have worked for you in the comments below, and we'll catch up in the next one. All right, cheers.